man that established this ranch was Thomas Cyril Terry, who was born in Bucks County, Pennsylvania in 1825. At age 7, he began working in a cotton factory. At age 17, he was apprenticed to learn the textile industry. But in 1841, he was introduced to the gospel. And in March of 1842, he was baptized a member by Thomas Newton. And in June of 1847, he left from Pennsylvania driving a wagon, and drove the wagon from Pennsylvania to Utah. So he just about crossed the continent. Arrived on the 25th of September in 1847. He served a mission to New Jersey and Pennsylvania. As I mentioned when we were at Hebron, he was a bodyguard to Apostle Parley P. Pratt. He settled here. Well, he came to Dixie. He was called to Dixie in 1862. I told you he was married to two of Zerah Pulsiver's daughters. He first married Mary Ann on Christmas Day in 1849, and then he married Eliza Jane on May 5th of 1855. And on their way to St. George in 1862, both of the Pulsiver wives delivered babies in the wagon on the way down here. He also married Lucy Stevenson in 1857, and she left him to become a professional dancer. I don't know what kind of professional dancer she was, but that's why she left him. And then in 1877, he married Hannah Levitt. So altogether, he had 4 wives. He fathered 30 children, and 26 of them lived to maturity. His first crop in his first year he spent in St. George. His first crop was cotton. He didn't think that was very successful, so he moved to Shoal Creek, where his in-laws were, planted potatoes. That wasn't very successful, so he decided to go into cattle and ranching and dairying. And in 1864, he moved here to this location. It was called Pleasant Valley, or the Upper Place. The Terry family owns 831 acres here. It's in a family trust. You saw some cattle grazing. I don't know whether they are Terry's cattle or whether they lease it. The Terrys have preserved this pretty well. It's a place of nostalgia, and they have family reunions and so forth. Thomas Cyril Terry had quite a posterity. In 1872, the telegraph line was extended to Pioche, Nevada. It went through Hebron. Hebron had a telegraph office at Bishop Crosby's home. The mail came through Upper Valley or Pleasant Valley, going out to Pioche, Nevada. And in 1872, Silver Reef got its start and began to boom. And it began to boom. The mail that had once been once a month became twice a month, and then it became twice a week, and finally once a day, going both directions. So here at this location, Thomas Terry built what was called a fort. There were gun parts, gun slits inside, and that's why it was called a fort. Now the original idea was it would protect against the Indians. They didn't need protection here against the Indians. It turned out that most of the protection was against robbers. This became a stage stop, and they had a corral here, a big stone corral, they corralled all the horses that were needed for the mail delivery and the stagecoach. This was a midway point between Silver Reef and Pioche, Nevada. The Cedar City Sons of the Pioneers put up a plaque here, and I won't paraphrase it, I'll read it to you so you'll know what it says and it tells you about. All right. The bullion-laden wagons, which could be driven into the fortification, were double secure, since horses and men could remain inside. An adjacent stable allowed for horse care, and the portholes in the stone wall allowed those inside to shoot their guns if a raid occurred. And there were attempts to rob the bullion wagons that came from Silver Reef to Pioche to be processed, and the payroll that was carried on the stagecoach from Ely and Pioche to pay the miners at Silver Reef. So this did serve a purpose. The main stage station was built in 1873 here on the Terry Ranch. East of this building, which the Terrys now call the barn, they had apartments upstairs where the stagecoach drivers and the mail carriers could stay overnight in their routes to and from. Usually they traded off here and got another. The mail was carried on a one-horse buckboard between Silver Reef and Pioche. The corral was used first of all for the dairy herd. They had a fairly large dairy herd. They milked cows by hand night and morning, but if you got 30 kids, you got plenty of help to milk those cows. When I was growing up, I milked 7 cows night and morning. By hand. And I played football, basketball, baseball, and track, and still milked 7 cows night and morning. What?
Didn't have time to get in trouble.
Oh, I could get in trouble.
How long did it take to milk 7 cows?
How long?
Yeah.
Depends on how fast you can milk. It takes about 6 minutes to milk a cow, so 7 times 6. Get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, milk the cows. Run the separator, separate the cream from the milk. We sold milk to Brooklawn Dairy, and so we separated a lot of it so we could have the cream. And one reason, there's a spring here. It's called the Moroni Spring, and they build a building right over the spring because it's cool, and that's where they could store their milk and their butter here at the Terry Ranch over that Moroni Spring. And I think as we drove up here, you noticed that there's some grass over here to the south, to the north of us.
Some of it's brown now, but some of it's still green.
We're in Washington County now. Iron County is halfway through that original home over here.
There's an official sign just up this road, another half a mile or so, that says Iron County line.
Right, yeah.
So.
And you can continue on this road and go over to Clover Valley, over to Barkley. My wife's grandfather had a ranch in Barkley. They would drive their cattle from St. George through here every spring over to Barkley. Questions?
In 1875, what breed of cattle were used for milking?
What breed?
Yeah.
Well, Holstein cattle had been introduced into Utah, and they milked both Holsteins and Jerseys. The Jersey cattle were better for producing cream. Holstein cattle were better for volume. They gave more milk than the Jerseys.
I just wondered if there were Holsteins here.
They didn't milk Herefords. Bob?
Did you ever have cow step in the bucket?
I had a cow kick the bucket.
I did too.
We had a neighbor who would tie the cow's tail to the hobbles, and the hobbles came loose, and she switched her tail and hit him in the head with the hobbles. And he jumped up and kicked her in the ribs and broke his ankle.
Who was that?
Cliff Rouge.
Clifford Rouge? Hey, I didn't hear that story.
Anyway, this is in a Terry family trust. The Terry family still owns this property, and they've done a good job of preserving it historically.
How many acres did you say?
831.
Is that the size of the original ranch?
That's the original size of their ranch. Yep. The first people that made use of this area were John and Zara Pulsifer, but a guy by the name of Westover moved in and encroached on it, and so they moved further up the road, further west, up into the foothills. And Thomas Terry was the bishop at Hebron for almost 18 years, and the transportation was horseback. That's a pretty decent ride. Thomas Terry also, as a polygamist, was a target of the federal marshals after the Edmunds Act of 1882. Several times the marshals came out here trying to arrest Thomas Terry. They never succeeded. One time he was at Hebron and in the bishop's office. Two of his daughters walked from here to Hebron to warn him that the marshals were coming. He got on his horse and rode off into the fields, and they could never find him. So, but the marshals did come out here trying to arrest Thomas Terry. They wanted to arrest prominent Latter-day Saint leaders, and as a bishop, and then later a patriarch, and having had, he had 3 wives at the same time on 2 different occasions. He never had all 4 of them together, but
Those federal marshals got around all over the place.
oh yes, they did. Any place they thought they could
And didn't
capture
matter
a
how far out in the boonies.
capture a prominent polygamist.
That's an old tree.
Brother Langston.
Could you talk for a minute about when they ran cattle in this country? How did they keep them separated? Were there fences?
Oh
Were
yes.
there arguments about who could graze where?
No, they had fences.
Oh, okay.
They built these wooden type fences. Some of the fences were those zigzag fences that you see on Kolob and Cedar Mountain. You know why those are bent, don't you?
No.
They ordered them from Sears and Roebuck, and they were too long, so they had to bend them.
That's got to be an old joke.
Okay, didn't the Edmund Tucker Act require fences at that time?
Did it require fences?
Fences, did the government require fence?
No.
The fence off? Because my grandpa worked at the Barsey Ranch, and he was from Tocqueville, and they were taking cattle over to Lund, I think. And the cattle boss said, "Doesn't your family live up here?" And he said, "Yeah." And he said, "Why don't you go visit them and then catch us when we come back?" And so he did, and it was dark, and his horse came to a total stop, couldn't go any further. So he got off to see what was wrong, and there was a fence. He had never seen a fence before.
Oh. Well, in 1868, they had a major flood here that washed out a lot of the fences and the roads and some of the fields. They had to rebuild roads at Hebron and through Shoal Creek and out here to Pleasant Valley.
We got Dean. Many of you know Dean Terry. He's a descendant and part of this family and this ranch. So anyway, that's great. So this was a stagecoach building here then there's to stop
Yes.
at one point in time. Yeah.
They call it the barn now.
Yeah.
The family does.
We've got we're scheduled to be in Enterprise there and have lunch there at the church and have the restroom break again at 1 o'clock. What time is it?
12:35.
So if you want to, we can take a turn and go up to the reservoir. It's about
5 miles.
about 5 miles. Who would like to go up to the reservoir? So we can go up to that lower dam up there which was built and started in 1893. So
Decent road, I guess, right?
Yeah, it's all oil.
it's all oiled up. So we'll go ahead and head up then. We'll turn right down here where it says a reservoir, and it's 5 miles up, and we'll look at that dam that they started. We'll go back to the church. We'll eat lunch there, and we'll head. There's a bunch of monuments at the intersection of
Highway 18.
18 and 50. Is this 56?
Yeah, it's 56.
Anyway, there's at the intersection where you turn to go down to where we're going down to the Pine Valley Church. There's a bunch of monuments there in that triangle, and we might stop there and just take a look at those for a minute, and then go on down to the church. So let's go ahead and head up to the reservoir. That'll take us 30 minutes. We're